So we've shown you a practical demonstration about this on-camera flash technique, but I want to help further demystify the intimidation that comes with using on-camera flash by showing you some examples and reiterating what we already discussed so it can really fit well with you, right in your brain there, ready to rock with your next gig when you're using on-camera flash. Now, many people actually say, well, look, I'm a natural light shooter. I'm just going to use ambient light. I have fast lenses. My camera I can crank up the ISO and I've got great quality. The problem is when you're photographing at a reception like this, for example, this may be the ambient light that you are using. Now, yes, you can do a custom white balance. It's going to be very difficult to get this perfect when there's sort of red lights and blue lights and DJ lights. It's all over the place. Now, so here's the thing that the couple have spent and the family have spent lots of money on the ambience, and many of us will put a couple of lights and light stands and strobes and then just literally kill all the ambience and yes, get clean light, but it's harder. You need more gear and it just becomes a bit cumbersome. And the main reason, of course, like I said before, is simply that we're killing the ambience. But with this on-camera flash technique, we also said, just to reiterate, we want to point the flash in the direction of where the nose is pointing. So what does that mean? Well, here's what we do. So we grab the flash. So in this case, I'm photographing this way. And what I'm going to do is both their noses are pointing to camera right. So what I do is I simply move the flash 90 degrees to the right. So as you can see, that's by shooting a horizontal photograph. And this is the photograph that we get. And that's exactly what we did. So what I love about this, so I'll just put that there so we know where that's pointing. But if you look at it, I said that if two people are interacting, usually in one direction of light, one person will suffer. Now, in this case, he's not suffering per se. We've got masculine split lighting on him and we've got short lighting on her. They're interacting and the light still looks good. So remember that when you're actually doing this technique, the more people you have, you've got to make sure that they're turned a certain way so the light can hit everybody. Because traditionally, if you're facing the camera with a bunch of friends, for some reason we all get in a bit of a semicircle. So they're all fanned out this way. So if you bounce the flash in this direction, it hits a wall over here and then comes back. If people are on a bit of a semicircle, they're actually going to cause a shadow on this person. So what has to happen is if you're photographing in this direction, then at the very least go shoulder to shoulder, or you can hug closely, but make sure there's flat. And then they turn slightly biased to this wall where the flash is actually bouncing from. And that will help you minimize it. And in a moment, I'll tell you actually, if you've got a lot of people and you're at an event or a venue, what do you do then? Well, I'll come to that. Now, how did I learn these techniques? How did I actually learn to bounce a flash? Well, when I started, it's 27 years ago, as of 2020, every single photograph was taken with a flash because basically we would print our own color prints in a dark room, and the color, the flash would just clean up the light, no matter whether it was yellow or it was green or fluorescent and all those different colors. The flash would just give us a nice clean fill. So we never really use it as a main light unless it was actually for the church or the reception. But if I was using ambient light like window light or outdoors, there was just a little pop of flash and I would bounce it in different ways. Now, recently, actually, it was really funny because recently I had a client of mine who ended up following me, but I had photographed a wedding like 22 years ago. Well, actually, no, what was it, back then it was about 22 years ago. And she posted a photograph of me photographing, and this is the only one that exists of me photographing because as a photographer, you don't get many shots of yourself working. And certainly if you were not in the educational space, as I wasn't back then, it just wouldn't happen. But she tweeted this photograph of me. In this case, I was bouncing the flash upwards. This is actually a Metz flash, but it was quite funny. And you can actually see me putting a filter on the lens. That would have been my soft focus filter, which is actually really funny because back then, to make some softness, like, you know, for Gaussian blur, we didn't have Photoshop. So many photographers would put Vaseline on a filter and then place that over the lens. What I would do, I was actually smart about it, that got all sticky. I put clear nail polish and then I would paint it in and then put it over the lens and then I would get this really cool, fun look. But anyway, I spent my early years learning how to bounce flash and make it not look like it. So now let's go through the examples again in this room right now and show you what we discussed practically with Lisa and Dylan, this flash technique. Now, so when we start, we will do full flash. That's basically you pointing to the subject and you're just going bang, okay? So in this case, we're photographing the actual client like this. Obviously it's a demonstration, there's no retouching here, there's nothing at all. It's purely out of the camera, but the flash is just hitting her straight. That's a rookie mistake, and I'm telling you, you may be at this point in your career. I'm telling you there's a better way, and you've already seen it, but we're about to continue to discuss it. Now, this next photograph, we tilt the flash head up 45 degrees, okay? So that's what we're doing here, okay? That's how that photograph was taken. Fine, well that's one way. Now, this next photograph is tilting up 90 degrees. It's as simple like that. And as you can see, we're starting to get shadows underneath the eyes. Usually you would get more of those shadows underneath the eyes. We often call those raccoon eyes, and obviously not very flattering. Some of us do this. We point the flash this way, we bring the card out. Most speed lights will have this system, and we point the flash 45 degrees on a bit of an angle, and this is how this next photograph was taken, okay? Exactly like that, onto her, okay? Now, this one is tilt up, card out, 90 degrees, bang, like that. That's how that was taken, all right? So we're there, fantastic, that looks okay compared to the other ones. Now, this one is tilt up, angle right, 45 degrees. So if you can see that close-up camera there like this, and that was there. Now we're starting to get a bit of modeling on the face. You can actually see that beautiful loop lighting, and there's a bit of dimension there. It's actually starting to look pretty good. All right, now this one is tilt up, angle left, 45 degrees. Okay, so we're basically doing that for her. Now this one is tilting back 45 degrees, and you might say that's really silly because you're pointing the flash away from the client. Well, you have to remember that the flash is not the light source. The flash is not the light source. It's where you're bouncing it off. So this is a small light source. If you're bouncing it off a wall, now it becomes a very large light source, and it works well. Now, let me show you and explain my technique again. Here's what we do. What we do, we bounce the flash 90 degrees in the direction of where the nose is pointing of the person that you want to feature. In this case, now she's facing us perfectly. But now, if she turns her face our camera right, or to basically to her left, her nose is pointing this way. So we actually angle the flash 90 degrees in the direction of where her nose is pointing. So now, again, the speed light is not the light source. It's bouncing off the wall, ricocheting back, illuminating this side of the face. It does not hit all of that side, therefore creating a bit of a shadow. We get both eye sockets completely lit. There's beautiful depth and dimension, and life is good. Now, what happens though when you tilt up and then no angle, but 90 degrees on the other side? So if you can imagine now, this next photograph, I'm not going to bounce it in the direction of the nose is pointing. I'm going to bounce it the other way. And of course, as you probably already know, we're going to get broad lighting. And I'm not saying that's terrible, but that's not going to be as good as, of course, this direction. Let's look at the difference now again. We've got full flash, bang on right there. Poof. Deer in the headlights. This one, well, now we're making it look like a softbox, and that's all on camera. It's crazy how this works. And I'm telling you, I've shot well over 1,000 weddings, and this is the technique that I've used my whole career. I learnt it probably in the first, I'd say 6 months to a year of me photographing, after getting results back and playing with my Metz flash and how it bounces and what would be the way to go. But this was the way to go. Okay, now let's talk about this. If your subject is facing you perfectly, and then you do no tilt, no angle, 90 degrees to her left or camera right, no, what are we doing here? No, we're illuminating that way. So we're doing this. Okay? So we're bouncing off here, illuminating this side, and then we've got a shadow on this side. So we're basically split lighting her. Now again, that's not terrible, it's actually pretty good. Better than going full flash. But the minute I basically take one step to the right, her nose is pointing to the left without any change of her angle or positioning of her face. And this is what we get. So no tilt, no angle, 90 degrees to our left and her right, and that's how we do it. Again, the flash bounces off that wall, ricochets off the wall, illuminates the side of the face that's furthest away from the camera, therefore causing a shadow on this side, therefore creating the short side. It's sort of funny because we're not really shooting on the short side, we're creating the short side as we're shooting it. So to sum it up again, whenever you're at a reception venue, you're at an event space and you want to use this technique, then what you want to do is expose for the ambience first. So, and also what I do is I actually have the ambience out of focus. I want to make sure that I get the exposure that I want, and I may start with about one stop under what I want the actual ambience to end up looking like. Because of course, once I bounce the flash, it is going to fill a little bit of light, and a residual light is going to fall on the background. So you just got to test that. Once you've got that exposure, it's going to work. So don't forget that, say for example, this particular exposure is going to be something like 250 speed, could be f4, it could be 2,500 ISO, something like that. Well, there's my exposure. I'm done, because I want to be able to capture that beautiful ambience, and my exposure will probably not even change for the whole night, unless I'm playing with a wider aperture like a 1.8 and I want to do something a little bit different. But most of my shots will be that exposure, because the dance floor, for example, will be quite dark, and the perimeter, the chandeliers, little sconces on the wall will actually be that kind of exposure. And again, I might go a little bit darker than exposing for it perfectly. Now, yes, there is going to be the light source itself that is going to be blowing out. I want to expose, as in I want the exposure for the result of that light, not actually getting detail in that light source, because that's just unrealistic for what we're doing. You will never, if you're exposing for a light source, everything will go darker, and that's just not practical. Now, I want to tell you something as well, that if you're using this technique and you are trying to bounce off a glass wall, a mirror, you are going to get this. You are going to get weird sort of cut lines on the face and the shadow. You're going to get these weird shadows on the nose and all that kind of stuff. So just remember and be practical that this particular technique is not going to work with full glass or mirrors all around. What you can do is, if there's a break in the glass wall, if this, it could be even that you put a reflector up and bounce that off all night. It could be just one table the bridal table is got a white sort of cloth over it, then great, you can actually bounce that off all night. There's always an answer. And we discussed in our practical demonstration of Lisa and Dylan, if there was a red wall or a blue wall or anything like that, then of course you just wouldn't use this technique. Could you bounce off a reflector? Could you use some kind of modifiers on there? Well, of course you can. And I have no problem with using modifiers. I just find that many of us use all this gear when we don't have to, once we learn techniques like this. So in this case, I simply bounced deliberately on a mirror. That's the result that I got. Then I turned her face to her right, or camera left, and then I bounced the flash in that direction. It bounces off that wall, comes back, illuminates her face, causing a shadow on this side, beautiful cheekbone and jawline, catch lights in the eyes, and we've made one on-camera flash look like a softbox, which is beautiful. And I really, really hope by now you're thinking, oh my God, this is life-changing, and it is. This is an incredible technique that will liberate you from a lot of gear that you bring that you just don't need. So let's now talk about what happens if you want to photograph vertically. Well, we discussed this in our practical demonstration, but let's go one step further. When you have, say, someone, a bride or a groom or anyone entering into a venue and they're walking in, well, you're probably going to want to shoot them vertically because, of course, they're walking in. You want them full length. So this technique, how do you do it when it's vertical? Well, first of all, let me show you the bad way, the incorrect way. All right, so here we have front flash. All right, so here we are. We've got front flash. It is just bang. There it is. You can see that really unflattering shadow behind her. And by the way, while we're here, I want you to understand something too. This is bad in two ways. One, full flash, it looks flat, unflattering. Also, she's got a gorgeous figure, but if you look at her legs her left leg is forward. We said in our posing demonstrations and our discussions that usually what's going to always work for you, a common denominator, is if the front leg is bent and is forward, it's going to look better pretty much for anyone, guys or girls. So in this case, if I wait for her to walk and always click just before that right leg touches the ground, so in other words, she's walking along like this, right? She's walking, it's click, click, click. It's never going to be like this, like she is there. It's always going to be like that. So now, here's what I do. I'm going to shoot vertically now. So if my camera is going to be like this, and her nose is pointing this way, well then I have to actually turn my speed light so it bounces off this wall. Does that make sense? So she's walking, and bang, look at that difference. So right now, that camera is vertical. So tilt flash head up 90 degrees. So let's just do that again in a couple of actions, 90 degrees. Then we photograph vertically. We point the flash to the right, so it's this way. And there we've got, obviously it's a very dark venue. We've got 160 per second, f4, 6400 ISO, 120mm on TTL flash. And it's amazing that TTL flash works that well. I mean, millions of dollars and have been spent and countless hours of R&D to work out how does this camera actually talk to this speed light and how does it all work? How does it know? How does it know? I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about the science behind it. All I care about is the fact that it works. Now, in this particular demonstration, this was done in front of several hundred people when I was doing a tour several years ago. And people said, well, all right, Jerry, okay, that flash technique is great, but what about actually bouncing off a wall that's maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 feet away? This one from memory, you know, because I know my flashes so well, this would have been maybe compensation, maybe plus 1.7. In other words, I've got my exposure, 1/60th of a second, f4, 6400 ISO. If I took a shot with no flash, she would be dark, but you would see her faintly. Then what I do is, because now there is no ambience here, there's nothing. I'm using this as my main light, that's it. If I use this on TTL, well, of course, if I'm bouncing off a wall 30, 40 feet away, then it's got to come back 30, 40 feet. That's 80 feet of light. Think about that for a second. Now, if I compensate, as in this is going to give me the output that the camera is suggesting, as in TTL through the lens, I want to add more power. So I compensate, and I will just press on the plus sign on my flash, and it'll be different for every speed light. And I'm like, I want 1 plus 1.7, call it units of power, above what it's actually suggesting to me, because I want to throw that light over here and throw it back and hit it here again. And it just simply works. Look at the difference between amateur and professional. And with one speed light, that's the exciting thing about it. We can be liberated of our gear. And I'm telling you, I've probably used a strobe in a reception with a light stand maybe once in my career, and I didn't even need it because I sort of didn't trust my gut. I'm like, oh, these walls, or it's so far away. And I'm like, I surprise myself every time I shoot that this actual technique works 90% of the time. And again, to reiterate, why wouldn't it work? Because you've got blue walls, red walls, green walls, you've got nothing else to bounce off, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can use your modifiers. You can actually have the flash off camera. You can have an assistant. Do all those things. But trust me, this will change your whole technique and liberate you of the gears we discussed. Now, let me show you a couple more examples before we wind up this part of the conversation. This is out of camera. There's no retouching. Here's a guy doing a speech, the best man. It's full flash. There it is. Full flash, bang. This is simply straight on. And I did not do this deliberately per se. I did it deliberately for teaching purposes because I nailed the shot that I want. I thought, while I'm there, you know what? This would be a good time to actually show my technique. Now, if you look at this, here is me actually photographing, and what I've done here, you can see that the pillar is next to me because I've got girls with a blue dress, I've got a blue shirt with a guy there, I've got another blues in at the moment, who knew? We've got a blue t-shirt over here. So I don't want to bounce off the people because I'm going to get a blue cast. So I position myself where that column is, and then because I want to spread because the ceiling's quite low, I actually bounce the flash in this direction. So basically it's gone on a bit of an angle. So it sort of bounces off the pillar, comes back, and have a look at the difference now. This looks like a softbox and it's very, very even. The ambient is exposed for quite nicely, and look at the difference on how disgusting that full flash was on the top left and how clean that was. Now, here's another very, very important point. Whenever you're using this technique, and as I said, you're bouncing the flash in the direction of where a nose is pointing, and you're doing this, every so often this will happen. You'll see how this particular shot, all their noses, they're obviously looking at something, they're actually seeing my same-day slideshow. Every single person in this room, they're all pointing their face that way, their nose that way. So therefore, my technique was this. I'm going to bounce that flash 90 degrees in that direction. Every so often, part of the image, a third of it, a quarter, it could be even a half, these guys are so bright because somehow it's bouncing off and the residual light is hitting them. It could be that some of the flash, because I'm shooting wide angle and then I'm pointing my lens this way, the light is actually, there's a double whammy. Some of the light's hitting them and then the light's also hitting them from bouncing back and coming back. So here's what you do. All you have to do is you just ping it back a little bit. So this is what we do. Just slightly back. So at the moment I'm telling you to do this. If you get too much light on one side, you simply just bounce it back a little bit. And that's how I achieved from this to this. You see how much more even that is? Even it's more even here. But again, look how many people are in that room. This was using one on-camera flash. So, what happens if you are shooting a wide angle, and what happens if you're photographing an event? Let's say you've got people dancing on the dance floor. Well, yeah, this might not work because you've got too many people casting a shadow on the person next to them, and then that might be an issue. So how did I get this with one on-camera flash? Well, here's what I did. I simply pointed back like this, and I bounced it back this way. Sometimes it's 45 degrees. It's in a way where it's going to be above my head. All right, so it's going to not hit my head. It'll be bouncing back, bang, and then flooding what's in front of me. So that is how I photograph that image, and also that image. But again, when I start narrowing down the amount of people that I'm photographing, in this case I've only got the bride and the groom, I'm focusing on the bride giggling at the groom. Well, as you can see, I've got the short side on both of them there, which basically means that I bounce the flash in the direction of where the nose of the bride is pointing, and that's what I did just there. And this is also what I did here. You can see this is the bride and the groom with a set of grandparents, and you can see the shadow very clearly on this side, which basically means that shooting vertically, I would have done this, okay? I'm basically bouncing off that wall, it's coming back on this side, causing a shadow on this side, and life is good. All right, let's show you another one. This one here, you've got a bit of a subtle shadow on this side. Well, this one was done horizontally, so I'm bouncing the flash, okay, in this particular direction, which works really well. So remember, when two people are interacting, you want to bounce the flash in the direction of the person that you want to feature the most. In this case, well, the lighting is actually quite even for both of them, but what I've done is I've actually bounced the flash on the person with the most endearing look. Now, they've both got beautiful smiles and all that kind of stuff, but I bounced the flash this way. Because she's turned her face way this way, we don't get that obvious shadow or that short side. But you can see, though, I've exposed for the ambience. I've got the chandelier and the reflection of the mirror. I've got the purple in the background, and I've actually made this look actually really even, so it works. This one, they're dancing on the dance floor. What do? This shot was taken with my flash like this, okay? That's what I did. Right behind, because there's too many people on wide angle. I don't know what I'm bouncing off. This is a cleaner way of doing it, and you'll be surprised on how this works. Sometimes what you'll do is you'll shoot on TTL, and you'll find a rhythm. Like in the dance floor, there's going to be, like you might be shooting at 4000 ISO, 250 speed, 4.5. There's your foundation exposure, and then you'll find that you're shooting backwards, but because the ceiling is so far away, you might be actually compensating one stop more output on your flash than what the camera is suggesting, and that's how we do it. This next this is out of camera. Nothing's been done to this image. It's out of camera. And how do we do this? This was a quick grab shot. Basically, everyone said, hey, I want a photograph. The bride said, I want a photograph. What do I do? I'm like, I've got one on-camera flash. I've got all these people. I've got no modifier with me. No problem. All I did was I point the flash backwards. I had Melissa, actually, my wife, hold a reflector behind me. So think of it like a halo. It literally was sort of circling my head and shoulders. And then now the speed light now is no longer my light source. I simply bounce behind, and now this becomes flooded, and it's an easy way to get beautiful, soft, even lighting on that many people. In fact, you can see the reflector, the reflection of the reflector off his glasses there as well. But it's just a very, very easy way to actually work, which I think is actually really cool. Now, don't forget, sometimes you will have natural reflectors in your environment. So in this case, the bride and groom cutting the cake. But I can see that the light is bouncing in the corner backwards. Well, of course, I'm not going to suggest that the bride and groom cut the cake facing me this way. I know I'm going to go around the corner. Even though my flash is on, I turned it off, photographed this way, and I've got that perfect bounce. It's just beautiful. And I exposed for the ambience. Luckily, the light on them also was the correct exposure to maintain my ambience in the background. While I was there and while I'm here, I thought, wait a second, if I can shoot this way, well, that's a boring photograph, but I can expose for that light, and then all of a sudden I've got a really cool effect in this particular environment. So what a journey we've been on in talking about literally what has been told by many people to me is what a life-changing on-camera flash technique that you are sharing. And it really is. You'll often go to a reception and spend maybe 20 minutes trying to work out your strobes and your flashes and everything like that, and you could get good results. And I'm saying, that's fine, but one, it's cumbersome, it takes more time, more money, more energy to do that, and I just feel like if you can get these results with one on-camera flash, and it's easy, and maintain the ambience that families have spent tens of thousands of dollars on, why wouldn't you? To remind you, here is an amateur approach, full flash, beautiful girl in bad light, not so beautiful, so to speak, compared to us doing this. Her nose is pointing that way. We bounce the flash 90 degrees in the direction of where her nose is pointing, and you can use this technique all day long, and you will look at all your results and thinking, oh my goodness, all these years it's been like that, and now I can make my work look like a beautiful softbox, and life is good. So guys, practice this technique. It will take time to learn. I'm telling you, you will be surprised at how quickly you'll learn it, and then you'll start to work out the nuances of it, and you'll learn that you can't bounce off mirrors, you can't bounce off glass walls, and all those kinds of things. You'll learn when you bounce off coloured walls, it might be an issue. Those nuances you'll just have to learn. You can't. I'm teaching you knowledge, but wisdom you just sort of have to earn that right. So enjoy this technique. Hope it liberates you, and enjoy the process.